Welcome to our weekly reading where we explore all things astrological. We hope you're doing really well and staying safe out there. From our two different points of view in two different locations in the world, we bring to you a unique astrological perspective on what is happening right now across the globe. So here we go. Hi everybody, this is Diana in LA and Cary in the UK, and today we're talking about this week's stars. And what a week it's been, and what a week is coming. Today is the 4th of July in America. It is our birthday. This is a very interesting time because our birthday falls on 13 of Cancer, which is the same degree as the star Sirius. This is partly why America has been considered an esoteric country, a country that was part of the New Enlightenment in 1776. We are about 244 years old as a country, which is almost a Pluto cycle. I know this is a lot to take in for the day, but I thought it was a good place to start for this week's stars.
I think this week has started off, as you said, very strongly. The stellium with the Moon, Jupiter, and Pluto and Saturn is having a huge effect. But the whole week, actually, is shaped by the square of Mercury to Mars. And, you know, we've got Mars in Aries, which is like a big oomph for everybody. But we've got to be careful because it's a time of fast thinking. Mercury's retrograde. Shouldn't make any long-term plans right now. This is a week about rolling with the punches.
I love that way of saying it, Cary. We need to roll with it because there's going to be a lot of changes. Mercury square Mars is always tension in conversations, right? There's can be opposite points of view. There can be polarization, which we've been having for such a long time now, but even more personally, where there can be misunderstandings, miscommunications. Mercury's retrograde, so that even more so. But a lot of planets are retrograde right now. Most of the planets are retrograde right now.
Well, and it's proving quite a challenge. You know, here in the UK, everything's opened up much quicker than we thought it would open up. Lots of physical activity going on out there. With the square of Mercury to Mars, we really need to be careful. This is a good time for physical energy, going out there, exercising. Not a good time for making long-term plans because Mercury's retrograde. Don't make important decisions right now. It's a time of fast thinking. And the whole week is going to be like this. We've got this undercurrent of the stellium that you've just talked about with the Moon, Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto. So it's a very powerful time. But we've got to be careful and we've got to consider everything that we're doing because everything is kind of misrepresented by the Mercury retrograde.
And Mars is going to be conjuncting Chiron. The end of this week coming, which will create a kind of healing crisis. It's interesting when you're looking at the chart for everyone versus a chart just for ourselves, right? We can look and see where Mars is in our charts. But this chart, when we're looking at a global chart, we're looking at sort of everyone's Mars right now. And everyone's Mars is going to be conjuncting Chiron in a sense, globally. That increases the tension again. There are so many counter forces that are moving in tandem together that are increasing the tensions that we are experiencing right now. And it is very important, I think, to walk very mindfully through life right now. Watch your words, watch your actions. That's Mars and Mercury in square, retrograde.
And with Chiron in that position, it's also squaring Mercury. So that's having a huge effect with regards to thinking about healing, thinking about vaccines, thinking about the way we're going to move forward. It's actually a very important week, but it's not going to feel like it. it's going to be quite a challenging week. We got this Mars in Aries energy. Anyone who's got Mars in Aries has a certain oomph about them. And having Mars in Aries now gives the whole world an oomph. And to give you an example of that, I looked up who were the two people that I would most represent Mars in Aries in their chart, and in their chart how it would manifest itself, and show you what I'm trying to explain. The two people are Steve Jobs, Mars in Aries, had his moon in Aries as well, and Prince. He also had Mars in Aries. So when you think of those two people, they really pushed it all out. They really pushed their energy out. And that's what Mars in Aries is. And it's pushing that energy out. Squaring it to the Mercury Retrograde means the energy is not operating in a straight line. It's kind of being a bit warped. It's challenging. And that's what's happening this week. It's a challenge. It's all about communication. It's all about thinking. It's all about not making long-term plans, being in the moment, working yourself out physically wise. This is a really good time to do any kind of exercise, but it's not a good time to make important decisions. It's a time to just be in the moment.
Yes, what a great way to say that, Cary. That's really right. And that Chiron energy, the name we call it in astrology, is the wounded healer. And it is about healing our own inner wounds in order that we can heal others. And in everyone's chart, Chiron is somewhere. And it's always interesting to look where it is, because it tells you sort of what your mortal wound might be and the work of your spiritual life to heal and healing in others. And right now, with Mars conjuncting Chiron, it creates a vulnerability, but also an awareness. So we get on the subject together, like this really needs to be looked at. And in our country, there are so many things happening right now that are somewhat shocking, definitely upsetting, polarizing. And there is so much tension right now, and the whole world is looking together at this subject at the same time. And I think this ultimately can lead to healing. But right now, I think it's just mostly uncomfortable.
Well, we're going through such change with this stellium in Capricorn. It's regeneration. You were referring to, the birth of America. Well, in a way, America's going through a rebirth. And of course, America leads the rest of the world, the rest of the free world, and it's going through a huge rebirth. And there's a lot of confusion. So that's not going away. That's still the underlying feeling at the moment throughout the world. We've talked about this many times, about the plates, the tectonic plates changing all the time. This is just an ongoing process. It's going to be like this for the next few months. So everything we've experienced over the last 6 months has not gone away. And if you look what's happening in America with certain spikes in certain states, like, if I'm not mistaken, in LA, they opened up all the bars and then they closed them again. And they did it really quickly. They've just opened the pubs today in the UK. I'll lay money on it, in 2 weeks' time, they'll be closed again, because this thing is not over. It's a long-term process. But what is changing is the way people think and the way people are living, and the knock-on effect from this whole year is going to, as we talked about last week, is coming to a head, and it will come to a head at the end of this year.
And how people are surviving. There's a lot of people not working still here. There are a lot of people that have been displaced from their work and they're working from home, probably never going to go back like they were, or some of them anyway. The whole climate and the financial climate of the US and probably the whole world right now is being affected by what's happening right now, as Saturn has now retrograded back into Capricorn. It's touching all those other retrograde planets of Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn coming together yet again. And so it's almost like a second punch, we're getting hit again with the reality. Saturn's always about the reality, the structure of things. And here it is coming back into focus to Pluto and Jupiter in retrograde, all of them. And so we have to review yet again this subject of our health. You could say the health of our physical body, but you could also say the health of our nation and of our globe.
The world is changing, and when this whole stellium goes from retrograde direct and then starts moving forward, life will never be the same again. It's like everything's up in the air, everything's being rearranged, and we're just going to have to deal with it. And we just have to be like, as the Japanese say, the water flowing down the mountainside. Every obstacle you come across, you just continue on your path. And I really think that's important, because you've got so many things going on, so many astrological challenges up there. You know, all the planetary aspects that are affecting everybody. And a lot of them are quite challenging, some of them are a little bit negative, you know, but this is all up in the air. And when it all settles, we'll be on a journey which will be very, very different. The world will be a very, very different place. You know, I think it's interesting that last year, or the end of last year, United Kingdom brought themselves out of Europe. And all of a sudden, everything's changed again. All the borders in Europe have closed up. All the borders in the UK have closed up. Everything's contracted. Because there's a change coming. And change is uncomfortable. But we've just got to be flexible and continue on our path.
Yes, and trust that the way things will unfold will be for our greater good. Sometimes things have to come apart in order to be restructured and made better. And so here's the opportunity of our world to grow, change, come out differently, to have a new normal about what life looks like, what finances look like, what work looks like, what relationship looks like. It's a whole new world out there, and it's going to continue like this. More change, more change, more change, which is what there's so much resistance to, because change is like death for us, you know, when we have to change, it's like a little death. And so there's always resistance that accompanies that change. And so here we are, all of us going through this change together. And what an opportunity to heal our world. Additionally, the sun's in Cancer. So what is Cancer? Feelings, emotions. We are feeling deeply what is happening right now. Coming from Gemini, now to Cancer. We are in the deep healing and repair of our inner states. So it may be that you find yourself more emotional during these days as the sun moves through Cancer. I wanted to share also the Sabian symbol for the full moon, which is today, which is 14 degrees Cancer, also the degree of Sirius. And the Sabian symbol, which is a kind of psychic reflection of every single degree of the zodiac, says this about that particular degree. And if you have this degree, pay attention, because this relates to your whole life. Like if your sun, like the United States' sun, is 14 degrees Cancer. So this Sabian symbol represents in some way the personality, right, the sun of the US, or maybe in your chart. It says, a very old man facing a vast dark space to the northeast. Right? And so it's their imagery, right? Their impressionistic feelings of what that degree represents. And to me, that is about the courage to face our spiritual issues, the going inward in order to heal outward. And that has to do with the degree of our own country's sun. So this is very powerful. Plus, Sirius is considered one of the highest lights, stars in the sky in terms of influencing humanity. So it's also the note of Sirius. So just to clarify, the full moon is in Capricorn and the full sun is in Cancer. In esoteric tradition, we often talk about the solar month as much as we talk about the full moon. But that full moon in Capricorn, talk about the bones of something, right? The structures again. What's real and facing reality. there is a tension in the air right now that with this full moon energy that is a counterpoint to that 14 degrees Cancer, 14 degrees Capricorn. They are in balance to each other, and that polarity is creating some of that tension, like every full moon does. And whenever there's a full moon, there's increased light. But this particular full moon on the birthday of the United States is also eclipsed. So everybody's been talking about that. What is that going to be? Because an eclipse can affect 6 months to 2 years out. And it's a big eclipse right now. So here our sun and moon are having a lunar eclipse, basically, right? That creates a shadowing of that light. So this is in the air too.
And also, in addition to that, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, the movement of the moon at this time is very important because it's affecting everything to do with the Cancer sun. This week finishes with the moon conjunct Mars, squaring Mercury. So it all this week comes to a head next Saturday, because the moon will be conjunct Mars exact, squaring Mercury. So it'd be very interesting to see what news comes out on that day and what announcements are made, because I've got a feeling that's going to be a very important day.
Yes, so how can you better take care of yourself this week? That's what I've been saying to all my students, and in my classes, I've been reminding everyone to take care of themselves. I call it supreme self-care as spiritual practice. The more organized we are within ourselves by meditation, by health regimes, eating well, taking care of our physical bodies, the more centered we can remain in these changing times. And so I really recommend that you take care of yourself. And as I say that, ask yourself, how better can I take care of myself these days? Like, really answer that in your heart, because this is part of the Chiron motion too. The wounded healer, right? How do I better take care of myself this week? Ask yourself that and do it, and see if that helps you keep your balance a little bit better during this kind of wobbly week.
And wobbly week, that's what it's going to be. It's a good description.
A wobbly week with landmines. So on that note, we'll leave it here, and we'll see you again next week for another look at the stars. Take good care of yourself. This is an important week to manage your own energy and stay centered and stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Have a good week, everyone.